presenting the only podcast dedicated to the AHL's Colorado Eagles. This is the Colorado Eagles Tape to Tape podcast. Here are your hosts, CC Hawkley and Scott MacDonald.
Well, good evening, afternoon, morning, whenever you're listening to this. My name is CC. That is Scott, whichever direction you see him in the recording. He's right above me right now, but we're playing the Brady Bunch, the home edition, but just with two people. So that's a bit of a dated reference for some of you younger folks out there, but
I got it.
Yeah, you got it. You know. So welcome to the Colorado Eagles Tape to Tape podcast and episode number 3. And we are chugging right along in the NHL's postseason. We're going to be covering, of course, can't not talk about the Colorado Avalanche right now. Today is August 20th. This will debut on August 21st. And just like last time, postponing the show for the results of Dallas and Colorado in the round-robin round, I would say this also worked out pretty well. Avalanche just finishing up their first-round series yesterday against the Arizona Coyotes. And, boy, those last two games, man, you want to talk about making a statement. Scott, I'm going to yield the floor to you because, man, it was I can't. I'm speechless. I need you to say something.
I mean, absolutely unreal. I mean, after first, I guess, couple games there, first 3 games, whatever it was a little hot and cold for the Avalanche, but they really proved why a lot of people are considering them to be one of the number one odds-on favorites to win the cup, and they proved that in game 4 and 5 with just absolutely dominant 7-1 wins. And if they keep that going, obviously, I mean, they'll be bringing home their 3rd cup, I think, but we'll see. Speaking too soon, we still got 12 more games to go.
Yeah, let's not count our chickens before they hatch, for sure. But I tell you, the fact that Arizona goes out and acquires Taylor Hall at the trade deadline, and then he is just completely neutralized by veteran defenseman Eric Johnson. I mean, it was amazing. It's like, aside from a game 3 where Darcy Kemper had to stand on his head, I mean, the Avalanche, correct me if I'm wrong, Scott, but the Avalanche had to, they didn't have to, but they put 40-plus shots on Kemper pretty much every night.
Yeah, that's something they do best. And again, you could kind of tell in games 1 and 2 they were maybe getting a little bit frustrated that they weren't able to solve Kemper, and he just looked like a Vezina Trophy winner. He looked unreal in those first couple games, and honestly throughout the whole entire series. And you kind of got a feel for the guy those last 2 games there. He didn't deserve to get kind of blown out of the water like that, because I think he's a better player than that. But yeah, that's nothing new for the Avalanche. That offense that we see, they might be at least top 5 in the league in shots per game. So that's nothing new, but if they can keep that going, you got to hit the net every once in a while, and it's better to take more shots than take fewer shots.
Yeah, the famous Gretzky quote: "You miss 100% of the shots you don't take." It's trite, but it's very factual. It's very true. Pucks on net, pucks on net, pucks on net. It's like it's something you got to do in order to score. And my goodness. Even though the Avalanche didn't create a whole lot of quality chances in the first few games, man, they paid dividends. And I know, again, it's the Colorado Eagles Tape to Tape podcast, but it's just you writing for Colorado Hockey Now and all the Avalanche stuff you're doing. I've said it once, I'll say it 1,000 times during the postseason when there is no, there is no AHL postseason. There's no Colorado Eagles actively playing currently. We would be remiss if we didn't cover this. And, again, we touched on the series. Avalanche took it 4-1. I did want to touch on game 2 a little bit. Now, Game 1, Avalanche, Grubauer got the shutout, 3-0 victory. Game 2, Tyson Jost, your man Tyson, scoring a goal.
He did, yeah. Oh man, Tyson Jost love that fan club they're absolutely loving it, and they got to thank Vlad Nemestikov for getting out of the lineup for that one. But we'll see. That's something I haven't gotten the opportunity to ask Coach Bednar about yet, but that's something I want to ask him. He's I'll even admit, I've said some maybe poor things in the past about Tyson Jost, but he looked pretty good. Maybe not in Game 5, but games 2 through 4, I thought he was pretty solid. And I mean, who knows? Maybe he's played his way into this lineup even when Nemestikov comes back. But yeah, good on him for getting on the scoreboard. And good for the his fan club as well.
Well, and that's the thing. Like, we talked about the Avalanche organization as a whole having this depth. And we're not just talking about Colorado Eagles players either. We're talking about the Avalanche main roster just having, I mean, going out and making, all of these acquisitions. It was just the fact that you've got, a Nemestikov, you've got Donskoy, you've got Burakovsky. I mean, you've got like these depth guys. I mean, I remember during the trade deadline, it's like, are the Avalanche going to go for Taylor Hall? And quite frankly, it's looking like they made the right decision in not going after Taylor Hall. And so, when you have an injury and you can plug in a Tyson Jost, even though he's had his struggles, to contribute to the eventual game tying goal. Well, it wasn't game tying at the time. It was actually the go ahead goal. At the time that he scored, it was 2-1. But the fact that you have a guy that can step in, even with his struggles and everything, I mean, it does trickle down with the Eagles and everything like that. And all the forwards and the defensemen that we did talk about, that the Avs did pull in from the Eagles for their Black Aces this year. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's just again, it's a testament to their depth.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, they got to be one of the deepest teams in the NHL. And I think they'll prove that by how far they make it into this thing. And who knows, what injuries, knock on wood, that come up as this thing goes on. But you got to have a lot of faith with your Eagles Black Aces and the Tyson Jost and your 13th and 14th forwards that will be able to step in. They've proven that in the past. So always good, absolutely, to have that depth.
Yeah, and speaking of which, we'll transition. Like I said, Colorado in convincing fashion, going through the Western Conference Quarterfinal against Arizona. I think I may have called him Phoenix earlier. Don't fault me for that because they were.
Coach Bednar did too. We had to catch him a couple times. He called him Phoenix, but I mean, hey, he's an old school guy, and we still make that mistake. But
it's like for the football reference, it's like the Phoenix Cardinals and the Arizona Cardinals. Right. Yeah. They moved from St. Louis to Phoenix in '88, I believe, and then they went by Arizona. Started going by Arizona, I think, in the mid 2000s. But okay. I think a more appropriate hockey reference in regards to mislabeling teams or leagues for that matter. And I can say this because I covered the league for 2 years. The ECHL. The ECHL stands for ECHL.
Formerly East Coast Hockey League.
Formerly, but it's amazing how many players and coaches and everybody else. I bet you Jared Bednar, former Stingrays player, former South Carolina Stingrays coach.
Yeah.
I bet you he still calls it the Coast.
Hey, I caught Coach Cronin a couple times too, and I was talking to him throughout this past season with the Eagles. He loves to call it the East Coast League and the American League with the AHL. But again, old school guys, they like to, that's what they grew up on, and you can't blame them for that.
No, can't blame them at all. It's only been 17 years since it's gone by the East Coast Hockey League, but honestly, they get a pass. They get a pass. It's like, all right, well, it's ECHL, but I'm not going to correct you. It's,
exactly.
Like you said, some of the old school guys, and that's just, I mean, that league started in 87, 88 and was the East Coast League for, a good, 15, 16 years. So, yeah, can't blame them there. But anyway, moving on. Little bit of a sidebar there, but like I said, I covered the league for 2 years, just kind of popped in my head there. But that was first things first, had to cover the Colorado Avalanche. And moving on to the Western Conference semifinal against either Dallas or Calgary. And that is foreshadowing, my friends. We will have a question from the fans in Asking the Feed coming up after we talk Colorado Eagles. So the Eagles, they have got, of course, a lot of alumni playing for the Avalanche. I mean, the list, I mean, we just mentioned Tyson Jost, and he spent some time in an Eagles uniform as well. But what I found interesting, and I did some research. I talked to Deanna McFerrin, who's our Laval Rocket correspondent here for the Sin Bin, about something curious I'd noticed over the years. And this really has nothing to do except for the tie-in. Well, so I guess it does have kind of something to do with it, but bear with me, Scott. Bear with me.
I'm here.
So the Avalanche and the Montreal Canadiens seem to have this pattern where they have goaltenders and they switch back and forth between the two clubs in various orders. I mean, I'm thinking of guys like Jose Theodore, Peter Budaj. I want to say Stefan Fiset. Yeah, just a number of goaltenders in general have gone back and forth between the Avalanche and the Montreal Canadiens. And I was talking to Deanna about that. I did some research for the Colorado Eagles alumni, and back to the ECHL days, there are 3 players that played for the Colorado Eagles in the ECHL that are now on NHL playoff squads. All 3 of them play for the Montreal Canadiens. And those guys are Alex Belzile, forward Alex Belzile. I'll try not to get the paper in the way of the camera. Sorry about that. Brett Kulak and Ben Sherratt. So those 3 guys, oddly enough, are Colorado Eagles alum and now Montreal Canadiens. And yeah, I mean, they are putting up a fight against the Philadelphia Flyers in their Eastern Conference quarterfinal over there.
Yeah. I mean, like you said, I guess that is a weird tie, and I guess I didn't really notice that. But, I mean, obviously the scouts of the Avs and the Canadians like to visit each other at their opposing rinks, I guess. But, yeah, no, they've been doing great. I mean, I think Sherratt he's got a few assists. I think Belzile does as well. And it looks like so far they're doing pretty good things on the back end for Montreal. And they're putting up a fight against a Philadelphia Flyers team that looked really, really solid heading into this thing. And now they look really, really solid in the first round as well. But good on them, you know. That's awesome. Good Eagles alum. It's always fun to see those guys making some waves in the NHL.
Yeah, let me do a little bit of a screen share here. I'm going to take advantage of our Zoom call. Hang tight here. I'm going to pull this up here momentarily. Just trying to get used to that. Okay, here we go. All right. Can we see that?
Fancy, yeah, I see that.
Yeah. So, oops, didn't want to go there. There we go. That was a spreadsheet that Sean O'Brien, my In the Corners podcast co-host, made previously. Okay. But yeah, here it is. The Colorado Eagles tweeted this out. And, you know, Barbs, you could see at the top of the list there. He had a cup of coffee with the Eagles, kind of a little rehab stint. But a lot of the guys, I mean, Bowers, Connaughton, Dries, Francouz, Gravy Train, man, look at him. You know, he's been doing well in the postseason. And Jost, mentioned him, Lindholm, O'Connor, Timmins, Tynan all played serious minutes with the Eagles last year. And then, boom, the 3, it's just like Montreal Canadiens, you know, going back to the Quebec Nordiques days of the Avalanche and that tie-in. There's a lot of Nordiques goalies that played for the Canadiens as well. And oddly, a lot of those goaltenders were from the province of Quebec. So yeah, there it is. Former Eagles in the NHL playoffs. The majority of them, of course, Colorado Avalanche members, but Belzile, Sherratt, and Kulak. Boom, right there. ECHL Eagles alum. So there you have it.
And love to see it. Yeah, it's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
It's a testament to the Eagles as well. You know, they're a great developmental team, and look at that. We see obviously NHL teams are taking notes as well, in particular the Montreal Canadiens apparently.
Yeah, there seems to be, even 20 years later, still a bit of a Quebecois tie-in there. So, yeah, I guess you can thank Pierre Lacroix for that. So, yeah. Before we move on to the Asking the Feed segment, I did want to touch on something that Scott brought up. He said that after our last episode, that there were a few players, noticeable players for the Eagles that were not invited to the Phase 3 training camp for the Colorado Avalanche. And it's a great opportunity to talk about why, and to kind of either put some rumors to rest or to kind of hone in some conjecture that people may have. But Mark Alt, Captain Mark Alt for the Eagles, and A.J. Greer, where have they gone? Scott, can you shine a little light on those two
you know,
guys?
it's like one of those things that I was kind of shocked that a lot of people weren't, necessarily talking about how they, when, back in July when the Avs made their, I guess, called in some guys for their training camp roster for this NHL restart that they were missing. It's the captain of the team. He's played some time with the Avalanche, Mark Alt. I was shocked to not see him get an invite. And the same with A.J. Greer, a former second round pick. He's, again, spent plenty of time with the Avalanche and various call-ups throughout the years. And, yeah, just kind of surprised that they didn't make the cut. And, you can kind of, I guess, draw your own conclusions about that. When some guys are, getting invited, it's obviously, kind of a testament to their abilities and to something that I think, when you get invited to the team, it's a good look for you. If you're not invited, you get left home, especially being two like bigger guys like that. Who knows? They're both in contract years, and you could kind of make an argument that maybe their time is over. Their days are numbered in Denver, but we'll see. It's something that'll play out in the next couple months here.
Well, and it's interesting to point out that in the AHL, there's either you're signed or you're an unrestricted free agent. There is no restricted free agency on the AHL level. And so to have guys that are like, well, I don't feel comfortable playing. I mean, we talked about Jacob MacDonald possibly, having that as, I don't want to call it an excuse because it's very valid, but possibly having that motivation. I think that's a better term to sit out the phase 3 training camp if he did get an invite. Same could be for Alt or for Greer, but the fact is that, they could be signing somewhere else.
Right. No, it's certainly eyebrow raising, but yeah, to your point, I mean, that could very well be what it is. And with the NHL kind of having these such strict rules about the unfit to play or whatever it is, or guys opting out of the bubble, they kind of don't reveal too much of that information. Maybe that is what it is, or maybe they're rehabbing, some nagging injuries they had throughout the season and thought it best to maybe chill out back in Loveland or back in their homes and, not risk their body practicing every day in Edmonton. So who knows? People draw their own conclusions, but we'll see what happens in the coming months and see where they sign or if they re-sign or whatever it is.
Yeah, no, it's always fun to play the guessing game a little bit. I mean, they are hypotheses rather, plural. They are educated guesses. We're not just, throwing darts in the dark here, but, that's a good point I hadn't thought of, is the fact that they could be rehabbing some injuries as well. So yeah, definitely a good, another good scenario to think about. It couldn't be just like, well, maybe they're not signing with the Eagles, but that, they could legitimately be recovering from, 3/4 of an AHL season that they've played through.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. So, another Eagle before we ask the feed that I wanted to kind of gauge your opinion. Well, not gauge your opinion. I wanted you to explain a little better for people that may not have heard why Martin Kaut was not invited. Well, maybe not invited, but, just why he is not in the postseason, the NHL postseason rather, for the Avalanche, and just kind of explain why his contract situation plays into that.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, kind of maybe think it has something to do with the expansion draft, which is a bit of foreshadowing because I know we had a question on that coming up and asking the feed, but it has nothing to do with that. I think the Avs made an announcement that they just told him to stay home because, I mean, he had one game left before, I think he played 8 games or nine games, whatever it was. And if he played one more, even if it was in the bubble, his ELC kicks in. So he burns a year of his contract. So they thought it best to, have him just go train back at home in the Czech Republic and not, kind of waste that opportunity for him. But, who knows, like even if he wasn't going to play, like I think maybe it wouldn't be a terrible idea to invite him because you see guys like, Shane Bowers and some of those guys that are maybe a little further down the road than Martin Kaut, who made his debut this year. They're getting some training time, some practice time with the Avalanche in the bubble. And, you can kind of ask some questions of the management for the Avalanche about that. But, it is what it is. And I think he wasn't going to, necessarily play anyway. So they just told him to stay home and get some rest, practice there, and then we'll see you next year.
Yeah. And I mean, like you said, to burn a year of his entry-level contract just for however many games in the postseason. I mean, he's definitely a coveted prospect. I know that when I went to cover the Eagles, I want to say, oh gosh, who was it against? I think it was against the Barracuda, San Jose Barracuda. And it was right before the trade deadline. And there were rumors floating about that the Avalanche were going to acquire Hendrik Lundqvist from the Rangers and get a goaltender because they were having some injury problems with Grubauer and everything. And of course, this was before COVID-19 and the pandemic and the season being postponed. But, you know, just everything being rattled around. And I actually sat next to a New York Rangers scout, and I asked him, I said, well, who are you looking at tonight? He goes, well, mainly I'm looking at Martin Kaut. And so the fact that he is being, you know, kind of, you know, at least at the trade deadline, you know, people were like, hey, you know, if he would be a piece of this trade, it would be something that they could pull off. Or I don't know what the hypotheticals were at that point, but to have such a prospect like Kaut and to preserve a year of his entry level contract, I mean, that's huge. I mean, these are, you know, strange times that we're in. And so you gotta, sometimes you just gotta say, okay, well, go back to the Czech Republic and, you know, keep training, keep doing your thing. And, you know, hopefully we'll see in December when the AHL is planning on starting. So yeah, I mean, I think you might agree with me, Scott, that was probably the best move that the Avalanche could have made at that point.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think so for sure. Again, he's not necessarily a guy that I don't think was going to, you know, play. And, you know, especially with guys like Tyson Jost, we'll go back to him. Like Martin Kaut at best would be, you know, like probably your 18th, 19th, like forward on the Avalanche roster in the bubble. So, you know, why risk coming back over? And I think at the time, maybe that had something to do with it too. Because this was very early on in the whole COVID stuff when they were, you know, deciding who to bring to the bubble with them, who to bring to the phase 3 training camp roster. Mm-hmm. And maybe he had a tough time getting back into the U.S. Like, I don't know what the deal was, the Czech Republic, but I think I might have heard a little something about that having, you know, played a factor into that decision to leave him there. And it wasn't worth the trouble to try to get him over here. And I mean, either way, he's probably getting some good training time in the Czech Republic than he would in the Edmonton bubble. So I'm sure he's doing just fine. And again, we'll see him next year. He'll definitely be at the training camp next NHL season. There's no doubt about that one.
Right. And again, you bringing up another good point, the fact that international travel is either limited or just strictly prohibited from Europe to the United States. Yeah. And I can't remember what it was during the time where, you know, the Avs were, you know, getting people in training camp and everything like that. And again, it goes maybe to the reasoning why Adam Werner, you know, Swedish goaltender for the Avalanche, in the Avalanche system rather, played for the Eagles last year mainly, but it would make sense why he also did not make the phase 4 roster and Michael Hutchinson did. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot we've got to think about outside of our, you know, hockey journalism box. So the fact that, oh, well, maybe, you know, this was the reason. No, there's a pandemic going on, and that is the reason, because they cannot fly to and from here.
And it's hard to, you know, really kind of like pry that information from. It doesn't matter if you have sources on the inside or the outside or who you know. No one knows this information, even like the biggest higher ups, because everything's so lock and key now with the pandemic and the whole unfit to play stuff. And, you know, obviously it's very it's tough times. So I think people are kind of just tiptoeing around the issue and, you know, just trying to stay safe overall. And I think that's just the general rule right now.
It's funny you mentioned the unfit to play statement that they're attaching to players that aren't playing, because somebody on social media kind of jokingly brought up, when I hear the phrase unfit to play, I think of somebody that has spent all night drinking and that is just so 3 sheets to the wind that they can't barely stand, and therefore they are unfit to play. Which is...
Yeah, it's an interesting, I guess, verbiage they use there, phrase they use. Like, I don't know why. You know, I guess I get it. The whole, like, I mean, the NHL has always been notorious for just not revealing, you know, injury statuses, whether it be upper body or lower body injury.
Right.
Instead of like specifying what exactly it is. But yeah, I think it was a little puzzling that they went with unfit to play. It's like, obviously these guys are fit athletes, like at the end of the day, even during a pandemic. But, you know, I'm not gonna judge them about it at all. I'm just happy to have hockey back, and they can use whatever words they want to, you know, at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. I just totally thought that was a fun little turn of phrase. And yeah, like you said, it is a little bit curious, but yeah, anyway. But All right. Last but not least, it's time for all of that foreshadowing to come to a head in our final segment called Asking the Feed. We've got 3 questions this go around. First question is from Steve, or at NoCo. Let me try that again. The look on your face, you're like,
I was like, hey, I don't even know how to do it either. So.
Been speaking long, CC? I don't know. NoCo Scuba Steve. Say that 10 times fast. NoCo Scuba Steve. See, I fudged it up again. He asks, boy, I got to get my transitions better. I have to keep looking down at the sheet. Okay, here we go. He asks, will Martin Kaut, hey, there he is, be protected from the expansion draft? Now, of course, he's alluding to the Seattle Kraken expansion draft. It's probably going to occur, I'm guessing, probably after next season.
I think it was originally supposed to be June of 2021. So we'll see if they stick with that. But yeah, I've heard they're probably going to end up pushing that back, just as like, this NHL season or next NHL season is set to start in December. It's obviously going to run past, I think, that June mark. Like, we're having hockey in, August right now, well into September. Then, yeah, that draft may very well be like next December, whenever it is. I don't know. But who knows? It will be sometime in 2021. I do know that.
So, yeah, so that's when it's going to be supposedly happening. Everything is supposedly, up in the air. But,
Right.
I mean, they're getting pretty much the same expansion draft rules as the Vegas Golden Knights did a few years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And, there's only a limited number of players that the Avalanche can protect. And, obviously, like we talked about last time, it wouldn't be too surprising, at least from my point of view, if Jost did be one of the guys on the outside looking in and could be left unprotected for Seattle to pick up in the future.
Yeah, no, he's a guy that I've pinpointed. I've kind of played around with the scenario, in my downtime during quarantine or whatever, when there's no hockey going on. It's kind of fun to think about those scenarios and who you would protect and who you wouldn't protect, and whatever the scenario might be. Yeah, I think in every scenario I ran through my head, I think Tyson Jost would probably be the most attractive option for Seattle. And I'm calling it right now, so you can.
Oh.
You can call it now. I'm going to put it right now. What is today? We got August 20th, 2020. I'm going to say Tyson Jost is a Seattle Kraken. You heard it here first.
You heard it here first. Scott MacDonald, soothsayer extraordinaire, looking into the future.
Yeah.
What's the old Johnny Carson skit where he had the big kind of fortune teller hat and he put the card up to his head, and see, now I'm dating myself again. I can't remember that. So
I'm more of a Jay Leno guy. So.
Oh, that's fair. Jay Leno, he's got the chin and everything, and
he's great.
Yeah, that's fair. Jay Leno's fine. He's great.
That was a good impression too.
Oh, thank you. That was just off the cuff. I just go into impressions sometimes and
keep people on their toes. I love it.
Keep people on their toes for sure. So Tyson Jost, August 20th, 2020, Scott MacDonald saying he will be on the Seattle Kraken come 2021-22. All right. Question number 2 from, once again, Mike Crook at Sinbin Rush, covering the Rapid City Rush for the sinbin.net. Now, who do you think the Avs will face in round 2, and how do you like their chances to advance to the Western Conference Final?
Yeah, I think at this point, as of today, the game comes on, in about an hour, our time right now, at the time of recording this, the Avs and Flames game 6. But I think Dallas is going to take that game, and then they'll go on and face the Avalanche in the next round. And, it's going to be, I think, I'm really looking forward to that matchup. It's something that I think was supposed to be their matchup, was projected to be their matchup even before COVID started. They're kind of in a collision course with 12 games to go left in the season, that they're going to play each other in the first round. But now here we are in the second round, a few months later, and I'm excited to see that because Dallas gave the Avalanche a lot of trouble in the regular season. They went 4-0 against the Avalanche, and to be fair, the Avs were never healthy in any of those games. I think at one point they were missing Landeskog, Rantanen, one of those games. Makar might have been out for one of those games. So there's some big guns were missing out of their lineup when Dallas, kind of beat them. And I think they only beat them by 1 goal 3 out of 4 games. But Dallas is a really, really good defensive team, just like Arizona was, maybe a little bit better than they were. And, they got a great goalie, just like Darcy Kemper. They got Anton Hudobin and Ben Bishop. If he can, get healthy, he's been out for most of the first round for the Stars, I think. But it should be fun. I think Dallas can score a few more goals than Arizona, so I think it'll be maybe a bit of a tougher challenge. But we'll see. I think the Avalanche will probably eke out I'll say in 6 games, I think they'll beat Dallas.
Yeah. I want to say you predicted Avs in 5 against Arizona.
I think I did. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't predict sweeps. I know a lot of people are predicting the Avalanche to sweep Arizona, but it just doesn't really happen that much anymore in the NHL. So I think 5 is always a safe bet. 6 is even a safer bet. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to go 6 on this one. They're Dallas a little bit better than Arizona, so I'll give them one more win against this tough Avalanche team, but that's it. I still think the Colorado's going to win this series.
Yeah, and if for some reason, Khudobin can't go and Bishop is still struggling with injuries and things like that, I want to say, keep an eye out for Jake Ottinger, because Jake Ottinger, 21 years old, got to see him, covering the Idaho Steelheads and the Texas Stars and that whole organizational tree. And just the fact that, he is a damn good goaltender. I mean, he still has a little,
6'6", 6'5", like the big boy.
Yeah, 6'5". Yeah, he's. Khudobin's only 5'11" from what I'm looking at right here. So, yeah, Ottinger is another big boy. I mean, they've got Landon Bow on that roster as well, who's 6'5". But they would probably go with Ottinger since Bow has really been.
He's definitely been. I've been watching the Stars Flame series pretty closely, and I think Bishop only played the first game. He's been out since then. Khudobin's been playing great, and Ottinger has been the backup for Khudobin on the bench. So he would, if Khudobin, went down with injury, then Ottinger would be the guy to step in for Dallas. And what a way to make your debut if that happens, like right into the Stanley Cup playoffs. That's tough, but
right.
We'll see what he's made of, I guess.
Yeah, it's kind of I want to say Matt Murray status when he had to step in for Marc-Andre Fleury with Pittsburgh a number of years ago. So, but
so we'll see.
What's that?
I said, and Matt Murray did just fine when he stepped in the playoffs. So we'll see what Ottinger can do if he gets to that.
It's amazing what a hot goaltender will do, for sure. So, well, you picked Avs in 6. I'm going to say Avs in 7. I'm going to say Dallas gives Colorado as much as they can handle, just with the roster that they have. Yeah. And, I'm going to be a little contrarian and say it goes a little bit longer. Maybe not as much as a contrarian. I'm not saying Dallas is going to take the series. Right. But I agree. I think Colorado is going to punch their ticket to the Western Conference Final. I do think it's going to be one game extra than what you said. I think it's going to take all 7 games for the Avs to get it done. So there we have it.
We know that. I'm excited for this one for sure.
Yeah, definitely. That'll be a good one. Well, we'll see if Dallas can get it done tonight. Like you said, Game 6 against Calgary, 8:30 Mountain Time. It's now about 7:40 Mountain Time right now. But yeah,
we'll see if we're right tomorrow about our prediction that Dallas is going to be the next round opponent. But
yeah, it'll be right. It'll be that post CC podcast. Seems like a jinx or something like that happens. There's always breaking news. There's always something that occurs after the podcast, and it's just like,
great.
Great. Yeah. But hey, we'll see. We'll see if Dallas can pull it off tonight and meet Colorado in the next round. Vegas is already taking care of Chicago, so they're heading to the Western Conference semifinal. So we'll see. And Vancouver and St. Louis. I know Vancouver has a 3-2 series lead. I want to say that game's going on right now, isn't it?
No, they played last night. It was a great comeback win for Vancouver. I think they're down 3-1 at one point and came back and won it 4-3. So good on them. Honestly, Vancouver's a team you got to watch out for. I think I would love for if they make it to the next round and the stars align, if you will. I would love to see the Avs and Vancouver. Cale Makar, Quinn Hughes can settle that debate if you want to, and that'd be a lot of fun for the media and for the fans of both teams.
Yeah, good point. The game I was confusing was the Islanders and Capitals. New York leads that series 3-1, and they are leading the game, game 5, 2-0 at the end of the second period. So that was the score that I confused with Vancouver and St. Louis as being live. But anyway, beside the point. But yeah, Vancouver, Cale Makar, Quinn Hughes. Always the debate. Always the debate. Calder all year long, even before the season was played. That would be interesting to put that to, well, kind of put it to rest, I suppose.
Who knows if they did meet in a series down the road, then that you got to think that probably settles the debate of who wins the Calder Trophy. I don't know. Honestly, don't know like when the voting is done for any of that stuff. So I don't know if it's like too late, but it would be. Yeah, I think whoever wins that series wins the Calder. So.
Yeah, I believe the Calder's a regular season award, but I don't know when they award it and how much, maybe unintentionally the playoffs could play a part in that. I don't know. Especially now. Like we talked about, we were texting each other earlier, and just everything being just cattywampus because of the pandemic and everything like that. It's just, who knows?
Yeah, no one knows anything anymore. It's a weird time, but all I know is there's hockey on my television, and I'm okay with that. I don't have to understand the rules necessarily, but I'm enjoying.
Yeah, no doubt, man. All right, so last question. We're going to wrap up the program with this final query from Asking the Feed. So Joseph Wills at hockey_jerseys. Oh, goodness, the wheels are falling off here at the end. I adjust the paper. It catches the cord for the camera. Get back to where you were.
Do something every episode, I think
it really is. It's just like
we're humble podcasters. We're not
humble.
We're not perfect. We're no Spit and Chicklets podcast. We're getting our start here. Who knows what we'll be in a couple of years, though.
We're gonna be hopefully just we're at this level, but we have to get to this level. You know what I'm saying? There you go. There you go.
It takes hard work and a lot of camera falls, and we'll get there eventually. So.
Hard work and a lot of camera falls. Thank you. I'm going to quote you on that. That'll be the In the Corners podcast, like platform quote. A lot of hard work, a lot of camera falls.
There you go.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Last question. Here we go again. I've got the paper here. So we're going to hold this away from the cord.
Good call.
Joseph Wills at hockey_jerseys. A little tongue in cheek here. Does Nazem Kadri win the Conn Smythe and have a day with the cup in Toronto?
Man, that would be the pettiest of moves, but absolutely, I would love for that to happen. And I think someone actually, one of my Twitter followers pointed that out the other day. That I think I tweeted something out that he's got to be Conn Smythe, at least getting some sort of consideration for the Conn Smythe, which I think he absolutely is. I mean, he had a hell of a first round, and who knows. I'm sure he's going to keep it going. He's playing lights out right now. But someone pointed out that the Conn Smythe Trophy is actually named after a former Toronto Maple Leaf.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that is just absolutely hilarious. If he say the Avalanche win the Stanley Cup and then he wins the Conn Smythe Trophy, he would certainly get the last laugh in Toronto. That's something us media and the Zoom calls after the game have not been shy to ask him about. I think with the Avs winning last night and then him moving on to the second round of the playoffs, the first time in his 10-year career that he's done it.
Right.
He never made it past that point with Toronto. So a reporter asked him about that, and he mentioned he had the biggest smile on his face, and he just thanked the Avalanche organization for believing in him, and he's trying not to let them down. And I think it's safe to say he's definitely enjoying his time in Colorado, and he's doing great. And I think that'd be absolutely hilarious if he took it back to, because I think he's from the Toronto area, is he not? I don't know.
I'm going to have to –
he's an Ontario native.
Let me pull that up. I will say while I'm pulling that up, Nathan MacKinnon, big surprise, leading the Avs in scoring, 4 goals, 9 assists for 13 total points. Right behind him, though, is Kadri, rather. 6 goals, 5 assists for 11 points. And my goodness, he had 2 power play goals in a row.
I think he has 5 that series.
Yeah.
That's wild. It's something of an Avalanche record. I got that media advisory in my email, and I kind of just glanced over it. But I think his 4 or 5 power play goals is the most in a single series in franchise history. So that's pretty cool. Don't quote me on that. I don't know if that's right, but it was something along those lines.
Right.
Yeah, he's absolutely unreal, and he's making Toronto eat their words. And there's still, if you go on Twitter and look up Nazem Kadri, there's still a lot of spiteful, upset people that just hate to see him succeed. And he's just kind of laughing it off. And he said during a lot of the press conferences that he certainly has a chip on his shoulder, and he's out to prove something, and he's so far done that in the first round and some. So I hope he keeps it going, for his sake and for the Avalanche sake, and maybe just to slight the Maple Leafs just a little bit.
It's amazing, how it's amazing how much motivation a guy or gal, in sports in general, anybody that's scorned by a former team and they've got that chip on their shoulder and they've got something to prove, it's like any, championship story that you hear. And I want to say, as much as it pains me to say it with the Denver Broncos hat on, for crying out loud, but Tom Brady, he's a guy that just grabs onto any, comment that is made, just completely, against him. Oh, you're too old, you're moving to Tampa Bay, whatever. And Tom Brady just is going to come out this season and try to cram it down every naysayer's throat. And that's exactly what Nazem Kadri is doing, is that Kadri is, just he's from London, Ontario, by the way. So you're right. He is from Ontario. But yeah, just to spend so many seasons with the Maple Leafs, come to the Avalanche, get to the second round and be like, a little Michael Jordan shrug. Just it's amazing just how much he is showing out in this postseason. And gosh, if they go on a deep run and he continues to be a player, again, it's a testament to the depth of the Avalanche. It's not just MacKinnon, Rantanen, and Landeskog on that top line trying to carry the team every game. Holy cow, like there's actually a second line, a third line, even the fourth line is contributing.
Yeah. No, it's wild. And that's something, you kind of just steadily seeing. Again, we've said it probably about every podcast now, but Joe Sakic, that dude's got to win GM of the year at some point. I think he's probably should have won it in the past, but maybe this is the year, who knows. But I think, we're seeing that 27-18, they barely eked into the playoffs and, bowed out after the first round, but they were playing with, only really their top line. That's all they had. It was just MacKinnon, Rantanen, and Landeskog kind of just doing all the work. And then 18-19, they brought in obviously Makar, and then they kind of bolstered their lineup with some more depth, and they made it past the first round for the first time since 2008. And now we're seeing, Joe Sakic went out and got Donskoy, Kadri, of course, and a bunch of depth guys that really round out 4 deep lines, and that's what you need to win the Stanley Cup. And I think we're seeing that now, and they're just rolling over the Arizona Coyotes, and who knows what they're going to do in the next round. But it's tough for teams to really key in on 4 lines when they usually only have 1 shutdown line. So I think we're seeing it now. It's coming to fruition, and this is going to be a dangerous team for years to come. Yeah,
they are building. They were building a contender, by Landeskog, one of the youngest captains in team history, and I believe NHL history, at 19 years old, coming in, and then of course MacKinnon, and you get Rantanen, and you're building those key pieces for the first line and even the second line and whatever combinations you use. But man, we could go on and on and on, but we're at the end, so we'll just
can't say any good things about it. That's all. It's unreal, the depth of this team, and we'll leave it at that. I think everyone knows that we're beating the drum right now, but
right.
It's good. It's wild.
Well, we're doing this every 2 weeks currently, just to kind of, there's obviously not a whole lot of Eagles news right now, aside from, signing announcements and, just talking about, what players are contributing in the playoffs, which, there's obviously ties there, but considering the Avalanche have their NHL guys out there, not too many right now. But again, we're doing this every other week, and let's see, August 20th. 2 weeks from now, it'll be September 3rd. So right before Labor Day weekend, we'll see you guys again. And who knows how far we'll be into the Stanley Cup Finals at that point. But Scott, do you have any parting words for Eagles country and the Avalanche fans out there?
Just thanks for listening to us, guys. Go Avalanche, go Eagles, and we'll keep it coming as long as you guys keep listening. We appreciate your support. We appreciate your questions, of course. Gives us something to talk about, and we love it. I love doing this.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really fun. I'm really glad that I reached out to Scott and to be able to have a podcast that focuses on the Eagles solely, but also, I mean, obviously there's going to be some overlap because, you know, the AHL is the level down from the NHL. And yeah, it's great to talk Avalanche. It's great to talk Eagles with somebody as knowledgeable as a Scott MacDonald from Colorado Hockey Now. Scott, as always, episode 3, all 3 times that we've done this, tell the folks out in the digital interwebs where they can follow you on the Twitters.
Yeah, well, you can go find myself at coloradohockeynow.com. I write just about every day over there, and then at Twitter at offscottfree, and the first O in off is actually a 0. So don't follow some fraud with the actual off scot free. It's 0FF scot free. Follow me there. I'm there. I'm active on there. I talk every day. I love talking with you guys. I respond to DMs. Let's talk hockey.
Exactly. And I'm CC Hawkley. I'm the AHL editor and Colorado Eagles correspondent for thesinbin.net. And you can follow me on the Twitters at SinBinEagles. Pretty simple. So give us both a follow if you aren't already. Check out both of our work at Colorado Hockey Now and thesinbin.net. And barring any camera knocking over, I don't have my hands or my body anywhere near that cord, we're going to call it a night. So thanks for listening to the Colorado Eagles Tape to Tape podcast. Be sure to subscribe to Colorado Hockey Now for some great Colorado Avalanche and Eagles coverage. And don't forget to follow the Sinbin as well for AHL, ECHL, and SPHL minor league hockey news, analysis, and coverage, of course. So for Scott MacDonald, I'm CC Hawkley. Thanks for tuning in to the show, and we will see you guys in a couple weeks. Take care.
Yes.
You've been listening to the Colorado Eagles Tape to Tape podcast. For the latest news on the Eagles, the American Hockey League, and the rest of minor league hockey, visit thesinbin.net or download the Sinbin app for Apple and Android devices.